Welcome to Writing the Wrong Way, the podcast for writers who strive to be bold and readers who crave something new. I'm your host, Jonathan Ball. I want to thank you for being here, and I want us to stay in touch. So subscribe to this podcast, then go to writingthewrongway.com and enter your best email to receive the Martian Embassy Missive, my bi-weekly newsletter where I let you know what's happening on Mars, where we're always making big plans. Join the Martians so you don't get left out of the invasion at writingthewrongway.com. And as a special bonus, I'll send you a free book. Speaking of books, my new book is The Lightning of Possible Storms, a collection of short fiction that reads like a novel. It includes stories about a mad scientist trying to steal his son's dreams, a story where a personification of capitalism is trying to impress his boss by winning a contest at work, a story about a Hollywood producer who just decides to adapt a bunch of explosions, and many other stories, some funny, some terrifying. Salima Nawaz says that it's cheerfully horrifying and full of the unexpected. Suzette Mayer says it's beautifully written and expertly composed. And I say, it's time you read this book. I've been working on it for almost 20 years, and I'm excited to share it with you. So please go to possiblestorms.com. Again, that's possiblestorms.com, and you'll find out a lot more about this book and some of the bonuses that you can get when you buy this book. Let's get on with the show. I'm talking to Lyndon Radchenka, who I presume I'm pronouncing your name correct. I never have asked you, but I'm pretty good at pronouncing names. I've got a friend. Lyndon was lettering a comic that our friend Stephen Call did, who is his longtime collaborator, my kind of recent collaborator. But I'm doing this comic with him called Dirk Dirksen versus the Demons from Mars that Lyndon's lettering, and the character of Dirk Dirksen is based visually on this guy I know whose name is Alexander Zhizhovsky. And it took me many times to learn how to pronounce that name, but I do pronounce it perfectly.
Yep.
Alexander Zhizhovsky, and I can spell it as well. And anyway, Lyndon Radchenka here, and we're going to talk about setting up a writing business. Lyndon's sort of, I'm in the phase of trying to reset up my writing business. Lyndon's in the phase of, kind of, I guess, I don't know if you'd say in the early or middle stages of setting up your writing business.
Early.
And Lyndon had the idea of kind of getting into it by just talking a bit initially about our differing approaches to university and the fact that Lyndon did not do a master's degree, whereas I did. I was just talking to my daughter about this last night, as she's kind of thinking about what she may or may not do. So Lyndon, you didn't do a master's degree. You did an English degree and then did not do a master's of English, although in the last podcast you talked about a little story you had where this professor had been encouraging you to do so. Mm-hmm. Can you just reiterate that quickly and then kind of get into sort of your take on what you were talking about?
Yeah, I'm gonna open this.
He wants to open this.
Thank you.
Live on air.
Hmm. So yeah,
because I did it last time.
Yeah, this episode works as a soft follow-up to the last conversation that we had, in which we ranted and raved about the creative business and legal and education. And you're right. I didn't go into a master's program after. Instead, I went and got a law degree because I was told I should and that it was the responsible thing to do. And now that I've finished my legal education, I want to start doing more creative work again and trying to do it professionally. So the question that I want to talk about, or that I want to kind of drill into, is as someone who's a young adult and has, basic experience doing creative work, how do I start to shift into doing it more professionally and allowing it to take up more of my time and pay more of my bills? But I think that it's valuable that we look at this both from the perspective of someone like me, who I'm ready to, if I could, I would do this full time, but also for the people that maybe aren't in that position yet and are stuck working part-time to pay their bills while they continue to chase their creative passions.
Yeah, and just for a bit of context, where I'm at right now is I'm basically a full-time writer. I, however, though, sort of divide my my writing income, if you want to call it that, is sort of divided right now between sort of three sources, and it'll be up and down which of those is paying me more at the moment. So recently, most of my money, division speaking, like the largest third of my money recently has been from just my own creative projects. It's like doing, I'm working on a novel right now that I have some grant support for. I'm doing a comic book that I have, some grant support for as well, which, by the time this comes out, people will know already that you're also working on this book called The Eye Collector.
Yes.
That we've signed with Virus Comics to publish. I've got a short story book coming out. It may be out by the time you hear this, called Lightning of Possible Storms. I've got a bunch of kind of my own creative projects.
Yes.
For lack of better, there's like a big bucket of my own creative projects. Right now, that's been actually roughly a third, maybe a little bit more than a third of my income at the moment. But, there's some years where like I get almost no money from that
it's
bucket, and other years where it's, overflowing.
It's one of those things that the people that we know who do this full time and make a living do it describe as feast or famine.
Yeah.
And that's just what it is.
Yeah, it really is the creative work in terms of like books and like, I guess now I'm moving into comics or, my own. Last year I got a bunch of money to do some screenplay writing. So like, for lack of a better word though, like my projects, that bucket is like empty or full. There's no in between.
Yeah.
The bucket that's a bit more steady for me are the other 2/3. So the one other third, which is starting to really ramp up at the moment, is my freelance writing. So still writing or editing work. The precise nature of that work will change. And lately it's been kind of ramping up and up and up. And to the degree that I have to kind of keep a handle on it so that it doesn't start to overtake my kind of creative work a bit too much. But, but freelance writing, still writing work. And then I do a bunch kind of, recently it's been going down and down and down in some ways, but I get about a third of my work from like teaching creative writing. So, doing a university class on, again, I see it as writing work because I'm still basically doing the creative writing stuff, but it isn't technically writing. So I'm doing less and less of that. But, historically I'm kind of like, either that's been half or now about a third of my income. So my quote unquote writing business, again, I include the teaching in the writing business because I'm not an employee of the university precisely.
Yeah.
Like on paper, I kind of am, but I'm really a contractor.
A sessional instructor, is that the term?
Yeah, there's different terms. But basically, I'm a sessional instructor. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm effectively a contractor.
Yeah.
I'll be on payroll or not on payroll depending on whatever, and then they tax me this way or that way. But but it's not most of my income.
Yeah.
But it is like the schism in my like quote unquote writing business. So that's sort of where I'm sitting, and it's kind of like changing and flexing. It's been changing quite a bit recently, and I'm trying to kind of keep up with it in some ways. But just for a bit of context, that's kind of where I'm sitting at now. Unlike you, I did do a master's degree. And this is the thing that I think is kind of an intriguing, connection to what I'm doing now. So in 2005, I got my master's degree. And my thesis, my creative thesis at the time was a screenplay thesis. So it was a master's degree in English, but I did a creative thesis option. I did a screenplay as my creative thesis option, which technically wasn't really allowed at the time I did it. I ended up being the second person to do it. And that was a screenplay called The Sandman, which now I'm taking 15 years later. I'm actually going back and taking that same material and revamping it, rewriting it, extremely rewriting it and revising it as the Eye Collector comic miniseries, 5-part miniseries. Is going to be kind of a graphic novel, more or less. And then I've got a plan where I could go on and do some more in that, do another arc and so on. So really I'm adapting right now into a 110-page graphic novel, about 30 pages of that 90-page screenplay that I did 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's the arc, right? Like that's the sort of weird way that this stuff all kind of like strangely, that's the strange path of it, Yeah. Like you're in school doing a master's project, you think is going to, it's like prepping for your PhD, you think is going to, help you move into a career as a university professor. And then 15 years later, you're rewriting your screenplay as a comic. You're basically, downgrading your teaching, year after year to do less and less and less.
Yeah.
And you're kind of, if you're, I'm sitting here wondering like, well, maybe I should have been doing things a little differently.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have spoken about this before. The question that I had for you that I wanted to talk about was, when I finished up my undergrad degree in English, and I mentioned this the last time we spoke, I had a prof that recommended that I go into a master's program. And I never have really had an interest in academia, so a master's program wasn't something that appealed to me. But it seems as though collectively, and this ends up being another generational thing maybe on my end, a lot of people have decided that the way to fill their time if they're not sure what they want to do is to go and get more education. So the people that don't know what they want will go and get a master's. So they'll continue pushing forward. And the question that I had was, when we're looking at credentials, because that's really what it comes down to, is they want to increase their credentials, are you better off going and getting a master's degree, or are you better off just writing a book? Which of those carries more weight in the long run? And at this point, my views are that if you don't want to go into academia, you don't need a master's. Just go start doing the work, because that is the same. You'll get the same credentials as getting a degree.
So my point of view, I think, is interesting in so far as it's maybe unclear. Like I can't even say really what my point of view on it is, because on one hand, I could look back at my master's degree and I could look back at it and think, I really, there was no reason to get that master's degree. On the other hand, I'm literally now turning it into something. Yeah. I mean, yes, it's 15 years later, but I am turning that project into something. I would never have completed the draft of that project, and I would never be doing this comic now, this comic miniseries now, if it wasn't for having done that master's thesis. Not only did I actually, and there's a couple ways in which that's true. So one way is the simple way in which, that was when I wrote the draft that I'm now revising. There's the more complex way in which I worked with George Tolles, who we talked about last time. I learned specific things that to this day, I'm still using, and even literally using in this revision of this project me and George were working on. I also, of course, there's just that level in which I had the time because I was in school. And I had to finish this project. I did do it. And so, yes, I didn't really end up doing anything with it for 15 years. But now, I mean, when it came time that I wanted to try to move into comics, I wasn't starting at square zero. I mean, in some ways, if you want to look at the objective facts of reality, the first comic script I ever wrote, I then signed a 5-issue miniseries deal. I haven't written another comic script, but would that have been possible? It's not like I started from square zero and had written nothing.
No, it sounds like,
but it's it was a path. But to go back to your point, though, getting the degree is relevant to that path.
It sounds as though what you're saying is the degree put you on a path that made you finish a project. It gave you the time to finish a project, and it gave you an idea that you could turn into a comic.
But the project is what mattered.
The project is what mattered, and it wasn't anything that was aided necessarily by having another degree. You could have done that project if you had wanted to, independently of getting that degree. The credential, when you sign...
Yes, the credential is the project.
Yeah, when you sign the agreement for the mini-series, they didn't say, oh, you have a master's degree. Yeah, okay, we'll sign this. They said, oh, you have a finished idea. So when I look at trying to weigh the value of getting a master's degree versus just writing the damn book, I feel more inclined to just go and do the project without having to spend the whatever $50,000 to get the second degree, because I can just do the work. Now I understand that getting the degree is going to give you, maybe some discipline. It's going to drive you to the finish line. It's going to give you a little bit more support in terms of having an academic advisor that can maybe help you. But at the end of the day, those are all things and resources that you can do yourself.
Well, I think you hit the right word there. It's resources. So like the one thing the master's degree did for me in a really straightforward and inarguable sense is it credentialed me to get a PhD. And then again, I treated the PhD like the master's, and I did all these different things inside of that program with this financial support. So it really just being in the master's program, being in the PhD program, those being in those programs gave me certain resources, and then I made use of the resources. What I see a lot of the times is people don't make use of the resources. They just go to school and do their schoolwork, which is a tragedy.
Well, they go so that they can get the piece of paper, thinking that the credentials are going to be what gives you what you want, but that's not what it is.
The piece of paper is worthless.
Yes.
All that matters is the project.
Yes.
And it's true even in the narrow terms of staying within academia. When you get that PhD and you do a dissertation, all that matters now is your dissertation topic.
Yes.
And the how good your dissertation is. The fact that you graduated on the strength of that dissertation is irrelevant in many respects. How good the dissertation is what's going to get you an interview. The topic, is it sexy? Is it interesting? Is it good? Is it smart? Is it fashionable? Is it, you know what I mean? Like it's still the book you wrote in the program that's getting you, even in the narrow field of trying to get an academic job. It's the book you wrote.
Yes.
And I feel like people really don't understand that. There's nothing, even today in the world of self-publishing, where anybody really can publish a book. It's still the fact that a book credentials you like nothing else.
And I think that's what I'm trying to drive at here is when, like, if we were to put
a bad book,
if we were to put me without a master's, like my resume on the table next to me with a master's, the master's part isn't what makes the difference when it comes to the publishing world. It's going to come down to the projects that we've done. And if you have if you think you can get the project done without getting the degree, and you can still bring the project home, you don't need the master's degree. The program might help you. It might help you get to the finish line. But you don't need it.
When I did my PhD supervisor didn't have a PhD.
Okay.
But she had published. So she was I actually had more education than she did. But she was my supervisor because she had the publication history. Now she's gone on and gotten a PhD at this point. But the point is, like, it was just clear proof. The whole time I was in there, I was staring at the face of, the degree is not the thing.
But now it seems like that is not the widely viewed message that people my age are receiving, which is that more education equals more money or more success or more prestige or whatever term you want to use. And it might, but when we're looking at this sort of industry and this sort of field, we're saying that you have to get outside of that because it's going to come down to the work that you're doing. It's not the piece of paper that's doing it for you.
So let's kind of come back to that topic in a bit more of a concrete way. So as you're kind of realizing that what really matters the most in many respects is the work you're doing, and the work you've done, et cetera, and you're trying to set yourself on a path of doing having a creative career. By which you mean that you want to just not only be doing your creative work that you love and enjoy, but you additionally want to make money. To allow you to continue doing that. So again, just kind of come back to the topic. We're setting up our creative our writing business. Let's keep it to writing for the moment.
Yeah, let's keep it
keep it simple. Because you're also a letterer, but
we'll consider lettering. We'll throw it in the pan of just what pays bills. It's your part-time job, essentially.
Yeah, well,
whatever
you could talk about lettering as well, or whatever else you want to talk about in terms of making money and stuff. But in terms of like trying to set up your creative, so let me ask you this question: what are you doing now to set up your writing business or your creative business? Let's call it.
Yeah, well,
because that could include lettering as well.
Yeah, and I mean that's the part that I get stuck on as someone who's still fairly new to this, because I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not on a regular enough schedule. I'm probably not tracking what I'm doing well enough. All I'm doing at this point is doing as much work as I can and trying to get my fingers into as many different projects as I can, and meeting and networking and meeting as many people as I possibly can.
Sure.
So I'm at a point where, I'm still trying to grow. And I'm not at the point where I'm necessarily losing track of all the corners of what's going on, but the hope is obviously to get to that point. You want to get big enough that you need some sort of organizational system. You need to be tracking things. You need to be treating yourself as a business. And now I'm treating myself as a business in the sake of, I'm looking for work. I'm doing projects. I'm building sort of a portfolio and a back catalog of work that I've done. But it's not like I'm running an office out of my house.
Well, let's talk about what you've done so far, just to kind of give people a bit of a baseline context of where you're at currently. And then maybe we'll get into like things you maybe are wondering about or things you're thinking you will do next or whatever. But let's just talk about what have you done so far at this point?
So far, I have published 2 of my own graphic novels, one self-published that is being picked up for republication, one that is being picked up by a publisher. I am currently developing 3 additional graphic novels with different artists, and I'm doing a myriad of freelance lettering projects. So at this point, I have done, quick math, probably the equivalent of 3 or 4 full-length graphic novels, plus a countless amount of short comics projects. I'm also going to embark on another full-length graphic novel project in the near future because our Kickstarter just got funded, which is all good news. I'm also currently working on the draft of a novel.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you, so we can do this a little differently if you want, but I think what would be a good place to start at least is for me to ask you some questions about what you've done and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then I can maybe also kind of maybe chime in here with like what I did
Totally.
when I was in your shoes along these lines or differently or maybe what I wish I had done.
Yeah, I mean,
let me just ask you a question about when you self-published a book and then it's been picked up for republication. So you're specifically at this point talking about, are you talking about Infinite Universe? Yes. So let me ask a question. So you self-published, you and Steven self-published Infinite Universe, this graphic novel.
Yes.
How did it happen to get picked up for republication?
So we self-published the graphic novel because we were under the opinion that no one would take us seriously until we actually finished a project. And so we weren't going to kind of build ourselves up until we had something to show for it. Infinite Universe is currently getting picked up for republication because we found a small press here in Winnipeg, which is where we're located, that was open to submissions. And one of the members of the press was someone that I had worked with through my volunteering in the Winnipeg Comic-Con convention circuit. And so when they were open to submissions, I reached out to them. And what I had said was, we self-published this novel or this graphic novel. I'm working on a second graphic novel, which is an anthology. And if your press is interested or open to graphic novel submissions, I would like to submit these for your consideration. Mine had already been published.
So there's something that so here's something it's interesting that so I am right now doing the insanely complex version of that. So right now what I'm doing is I was just talking today actually with Ren, this woman who's doing this for me. I'm paying her to do this project where she's building an inventory system. So like she's just taking building an inventory setup where she, and then where I can put into a Dropbox folder, say a story I've written.
Yep.
I can write a story or find a story on my hard drive, put it in the Dropbox folder.
Yep.
Then she's going to take it, file it into an inventory. I'm going to tell her, we'll have a meeting, and I'll say, submit that story to this place.
Yeah.
Or find some horror market for that horror story or something.
Yeah.
And then she's going to, put it into submission and track the submission, whether they accept it or reject it, the money comes back on this and that and the other thing. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to find a way to sell and resell the work I've already done. Now, for me, at this point, that's, an incredible amount of work. So I'm just about to put out my 8th book. All those books could be resold in foreign markets.
Yeah.
Every single one of those books is a collection. Well, almost every one of those books is a collection of discrete works. So like in a poetry book, for example, there's 100 poems roughly, each of which could be sold separately.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I've got unpublished in my computer, another thousands and thousands.
That's what you said, yeah.
Poems, stories, whatever. But what I realized, and it took me a long time to realize this, is that to have a sustainable business, I have to be reselling work I already did. So it's interesting to me that you would actually be approaching when a press puts out submissions. So what I used to do when I was young is somebody would be like, we're open for submissions, and I would write something new and send it in.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad idea, but if you have the time.
Yeah.
But what I should have been doing, if I was smart, is sending them things that were already written.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the logic of it was, we made a book to show that we could make a book, and we self-printed it so that when the time came that we needed to pitch to a publisher, we could say, we've already finished something. We have proven that we can get the job done, and so we made this book and we started hand selling it at conventions. Now, obviously, all of this transpired before we were all stuck at home, which currently I'm for the next foreseeable future and in the past. But when we're hand selling it at shows, we have it on our website that it's available. We got it on Comixology, so you could buy it there. But it's a lot of work to get it into the hands of bookstores and to get it into the hands of anyone who isn't, on your con circuit or in the city that you live in. So even though we took it to independent bookstores, we took it to comic book stores that we knew, and they stocked it there for us, our distribution is still low. And so while we like that we can hand sell it at shows, we realized that that's a micro fraction of the potential audience out there. And so if there is someone that wants to do that work for us, which is the job of a publisher, we are more than willing to sell the distribution rights to that book if they're going to expand the marketplace that we're getting to. Now, even though we're only going to get a cut or not a fraction, because our royalty rate is very, very generous. But even though we're not going to get the full proceeds of the money from the books that end up in that market, that is still more money than we would get otherwise, because it takes so much work to get the money in that market, period.
And you've already done the work.
The work's done. Yeah, we just had to send it up.
This
the
is
file
the thing
is done.
It has taken me forever to realize, and and at this point I've realized that so much, because I've been thinking a lot in recent years about what's the business model that makes the most sense, where I can just do whatever I want and do the weird. Because if people actually know my work is friggin' strange.
The word, the classy word that we use is niche.
It's very
work.
Weird niche work.
Yeah.
Right? It is strange, weird niche work. We were just earlier this week, Lyndon and me and Gregory were all texting about this lettering thing where Gregory had asked that I add some text on this one page, and so I'd come up with this thing, and Lyndon had a really cool idea
Well, your and Gregory's motto with this book is make it weirder.
Yeah, you were like, I've got an idea, but I think it's maybe too weird. And I was like, do you think we're the guys who are worried about
no.
being weird?
The motto of the book is make it weirder. So we did something that, doesn't get done in comics.
Yeah, so we're not worrying about like whether it's marketable. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're trying to market it or whatever, but we're not worrying about, we're not going to make it marketable, if that makes sense. So we're going to make it and then try to market it. But we're not going to make it marketable.
We're not going to allow marketability dictate the decisions we're making in the book.
But my philosophy is that's fine. The reason I allow myself to do that and to do the strangest possible thing at all times is because the devil's deal I've made with myself is when I'm done writing that thing, I will just pretend, I'll wash from my mind the idea that it's as strange as fuck.
It belongs here. It's done.
And I'll just assume now somebody wants it. How do I find that person?
Yeah.
So I'll actually like put the work into marketing it, or at least try to devise some method of marketing it.
Yeah.
Like I'll put real work into that as if it were a marketable thing, even if it isn't.
Yeah. That's
my deal. I have to treat it like it's marketable even if it's not.
Yeah.
But I don't have to try to make it marketable. But the thing that then comes into play for me is what I realized just doing the math of it and looking at like the business of it is if I want to keep doing the strangest possible thing and not worrying whether it makes any money, I have to find a way to take all the stuff I've already done and make it have it make money.
Thing. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to make a lot of money. What I realized is like if you just do the math of it, like if it's a numbers game.
Yep.
It's like let's say for simple math, I were to make $100 every time I publish something, which is of course ridiculous. Sometimes you make $10, sometimes you make $10,000.
Yeah.
But like if everything makes you $100, let's say every acceptance is $100 just for simple math.
Yeah.
The question is how much money do you need to make in a year? How many submissions do you have to put out?
Right.
What's your submission acceptance rate?
Right.
And if your rate's 10% and you have to sell, I don't know, let's say you want to make $100,000 just for easy math.
Yep.
You make $100 on each thing.
That means you have to
your
send
acceptance rate is 10%.
1,000 things.
1,000 things in a year or in a month?
A year. That's the math, right? If you want to make 10,000. If you want to make
10,000 things. So let's just do the math here. So 10% of 1,000.
We're clearly not math.
So 100 things, 100 times 100 is what? Is it 10,000 or 100,000? Okay. Let's just do the math right now. Let's do it live for people.
100. This is so embarrassing. 100 times 100 is 10,000.
So I actually have to send out 10,000 things in a year. I can't send out 10,000 things in a year because I'd have to do nothing else. But I could hire somebody to do it, perhaps.
I think you need.
So if I spend $20,000,
I think you need to send out 1,000 things, not 10,000 things
in a year. No, you just told me.
No, so
100 times 100 is 10,000.
Yes, but
that's my acceptance zone.
But if you want to make $100,000 in a year, and you make $100 on everything you send out, then you need to send out $1,100 because 100 times 1,000 is 100,000. So you have to send out 1,000 things in a year.
I have accepted 100,000 things in a year. So I have to send out 10,000.
If your acceptance rate is 10%.
If my acceptance rate is 10%.
Yes.
That's the math of it. So that's like obviously oversimplified math.
I'm so sorry, listener.
But let's say, so again, if I need, so then what if, I got to send it roughly 1,000 or like somewhere between 8, I'm not going to do that exactly.
No, yeah.
Like somewhere between 800 and 1,000 things a month I have to send out. If a 10% accepted rate, I'm getting $100 each.
Yeah.
So let's say that is feasible math.
Okay.
And in that case, like, well, my full-time job is sending out stuff I already did. I don't have time to do anything. Well, that's ridiculous. I don't want to do that.
That's right.
But I could pay somebody. But if I'm making $100,000,
you need to make enough money to be able to pay someone.
But if I'm making $100,000, I could pay somebody $30,000. I end up with $70,000 doing nothing. Now it's not really doing nothing because I already did.
Because you've already done the work. Yeah.
But this is like the law. So again, these are just like imaginary numbers. But that's the logic of it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's less like the crazy max version of what you're talking about with republishing the book. You already did it. You recognized I could republish it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be me that goes to a con anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll make less money than if it was me standing there.
But Jonathan,
I don't have to stand there now.
But this is the frustration of it. And kind of what I want to bring it back down to, and it's sort of base level thing, is when we're talking about creative people that want to make a living doing creative work, the people that are doing it aren't wealthy people. You're not starting off with a nest egg of money, and this essentially just becomes another pay-to-play scheme of making money, where you need money to make money.
Well, I think what you actually need to do is set yourself up on a path where you're getting to this point where you're living off royalties.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we need to dig into when we're looking at starting to create a business for yourself. Because yes, what you're talking about is something that you can do when you reach a certain point. But when we're talking about people that are my age, or people that are not established creators at this point, like I took. I'll bring it right to the beginning.
Let's come right back to what you're talking about. So what I wish I had done when I was your age, so I didn't have to do all this stuff now, it was just already done.
Yes. But when I'm talking about treating yourself as a business, let's pretend that you and I don't have a back catalog of work that we've done yet. We do, but...
Sure. Imagine you're starting from zero.
You're starting from zero. What you're starting at is you took a creative writing class one time.
Okay, let's start with the creative writing class. Because that's actually a very good place to start.
Yeah.
If I'm that person...
You're a creator, and you were taking a creative writing class. I didn't
really do this path, and you didn't either, but like a lot of people do the path where they kind of like writing, they write here and there.
Yep.
Now they're in university doing whatever they're doing.
Yep.
And they think, maybe I'll take a creative writing class.
For fun, for an elective.
For fun, or maybe in the back of their mind they have the idea that they'd like to do this very seriously, but they don't know how, they don't have the information, they just don't get it.
So they take a creative writing class.
So they take a creative writing class. And what do they learn in that creative writing class? Now I teach creative writing classes.
So I took a creative writing class, and I did take a creative writing class, and what I learned was how to chase your muse, and what motivates you as a writer to write things, and you'll write and you'll workshop it and you'll become a better writer that way. Great. It taught me how to be a hobby writer, because it taught me how I can create things that I enjoy reading. That's it.
Which is fine to a degree, but it doesn't
serve the purpose that what we're talking about.
It's a hobby writing thing.
Yeah.
So, like, I write the things I want to read.
Yep.
But I have a framework. I understand that, like, this will make me money and this will not make me money.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I want to do this, I've got to also do this. Or I've got to find a way to, offset it with this. And I've had to learn all that stuff with trial and error, and I'm still learning it, at this point.
But there is no consumer math of writing. There is no writing class that's going to teach you the fundamental skills to make a business out of what it is you're doing.
Well, the most valuable thing I ever did when I was I took a bunch of creative writing classes, and I learned lots of interesting and excellent things. I learned things about writing that I still use and think were really valuable.
Yeah.
But then I learned other things were just I can barely remember them.
Yeah.
Or I don't remember them.
Yeah.
But what I learned the most from was a 1 hour workshop I took by accident about taxes in writings. Where I learned...
And I know nothing about taxes writing.
Well, let me tell you something. Now, I am not an accountant.
Yeah.
And this is not accounting or legal advice.
I will not take anything you say as legal advice as I hold my left hand.
Lyndon being a lawyer, or at least being qualified to be a lawyer if he chose to be.
Yeah.
I think a thing that writers, let's imagine, again, you're starting from zero, you're taking a creative writing class. You took it, you learned some fun things, it was neat, but you still don't know what it means to be a professional writer.
You learned that it's fun to write things. That's what you learned in a creative writing class.
And maybe you learned how to be a better writer. Yep. Let's say you learned how to be a better writer, and you are a better writer. Now you're a really good writer. Let's just start from there.
Yep.
What do you do now?
I'm looking around the room aimlessly.
I think a thing that people really overlook is, in terms of professionalization of a writing, like becoming a writing business, is one, you really need to recognize that if you're going to try to make money, you are now a writing business. And you got to understand, it's not even just a mindset. It is a mindset thing, but it's not just a mindset thing. It's actually a taxation legal thing. The government of Canada now considers you, if you send a poem to a magazine and they publish your poem and pay you $50, now you have to tell the government you made $50 writing.
Now, here's my question, and I don't know enough about taxation to know the answer to this. Is there a threshold that you have to hit before it becomes an actual profession?
It's income.
It's income.
So the question, now again, I'm not a tax person, but like, for you, Lyndon,
yes,
a person who is making some money writing and doing lettering, doing creative activities.
Yeah.
So when you go to file your taxes, you have to report the money you made. Now, the question now, and they're going to tax you on it.
Yes.
Because I paid you whatever it was. Let's say I paid you $1,000,
and I will be reporting it on my taxes.
So, so I paid you let's just for ease numbers use $1,000. I paid you $1,000 to do lettering on the eye collector.
Yeah.
Again, we're not using the real numbers, but like that's the number we'll use for the example.
Yeah.
So you have to, report that with all the other income you made.
Yep.
Now, when I paid you $1,000, I didn't withhold any taxes.
Correct.
So the government,
they're going to tax
CRA will tax $300 roughly away from you, say, whatever it is. Let's say the tax bracket is 30%.
30%?
I forget. It depends where you fall with your total income and stuff. Like just for simple math, and let's say your bracket ends up being 30%.
Correct.
They're going to tax $300 back. So one thing you got to know is when I give you that $1,000, you should put $300 into a bank account and not spend it.
Right.
Because tax man's going to come.
Your receipt on it, so you know how much you were paid.
You got to get an invoice, or whatever, or provide me an invoice, and then I pay you. You gotta. So one, you need to have paperwork for all that. You got to have a place to file that paperwork.
Yeah.
Because when taxes comes, they're going to need that paperwork.
Yeah.
You've got to withhold from yourself a certain amount of money that you understand probably will go to taxes.
Yep.
But the other thing to keep in mind that a lot of people don't keep in mind, even if they know that, is you now, because you're engaged in professional activity, so now you're in business, Lyndon, whether you like it or not.
Okay. I've accepted money for something. I'm in business.
And therefore, you can write off business expenses. So now you go to the comic store and you buy a comic book. And it costs you, let's say you buy a fancy, expensive comic that costs you $30.
Yeah.
And you are buying it because you love this letterer.
Yeah.
You're going to put it in your pile of comics, your library.
Yeah.
Where,
Are you saying that I should be keeping the receipts from all the comics that I buy?
Because you can write them off as business expenses.
Interesting. I'm learning.
So now you say you bought a $30 comic.
Yeah.
It's a legitimate business expense because you're reading that comic. You got to, you read it, you study. You pay attention to the lettering.
Yep.
You decide, Batman Beyond has crap lettering or whatever. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try that.
Yep.
That's a neat thing, whatever.
Yep. So here's
this is a legitimate business expense for you, Lyndon.
Yeah.
And so if you save that receipt, now you can write a portion of that off. So you'll end up getting like, what is it?
I spent a lot of money on comic books.
You're $10 off. You'll get like $10 of that $30 back.
So here's a question, because
more or less
I'm an idiot and didn't save my receipts for everything.
When you and I go out to lunch and talk about the eye collector in the post-COVID times, you save that receipt.
Okay, but here's
you know what I mean?
I pay everything. I do all my purchases on my credit card, and I pay off my credit card. So I have an invoice on my credit card from the store that tells me what it is.
So when I buy a book on Amazon, as an example, or McNally or whatever, they email me a receipt. I print the receipt off.
Okay, I get that. But my question for you, Jonathan, is can I use credit card invoices as a receipt of purchase?
Theoretically, yes. I wouldn't advise it.
Okay.
Because it doesn't itemize it.
Correct.
And it doesn't show the taxes breakdown.
Yeah.
Because you're going to maybe get because at some point you might start charging GST. Like I charge GST, for example.
Yeah.
Anyway, it gets complicated. But the short story is
tax
these
write-offs.
are the things you should learn.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
And no one knows that. I didn't know that. I just buy comics because I like reading comics.
You probably could have got thousands of dollars back on your taxes.
I spend so much money on reading comics.
I've spent, I don't want to say it in case my wife listens to this, but I've spent
a lot of money.
A ton of money on books over the years.
Yeah.
But I get about 30% of it back in taxes.
Okay.
Or at least in tax write-offs, which is not insubstantial. So I don't know the details of how the taxes work. Like I have an accountant that does this tax stuff for me, but that's the basics of it. Is like now you're in business, so you got to think about everything differently. When you go buy a comic book, that's a business expense because you're learning how to better make comics.
Yeah.
Assuming you actually are reading it and learning from it and blah blah.
Yeah.
Like none's tracking whether you're reading a book.
Yeah.
But like that's the way you got to
the mentality
think.
of it, treating yourself as a business.
And you got to remember, like they're treating you as a business.